There are many reasons, men of Athens, why I feel no distress at what has now occurred. I mean your condemnation of me. It is not unexpected. On the contrary, I am surprised at the number of votes on either side. I did not think it would be so close. I thought the majority would be great, but in fact, so it appears, if only 30 votes had gone otherwise, I should have been acquitted. Against Miletus, as it is, I appear to have won, and not only so, but it is clear to everyone that if Anytus and Lycon had not come forward to accuse me, he would have been fined 1,000 drachmas, for he would not have obtained a fifth part of the votes. The penalty he fixes for me is, I understand, death. Very good. And what am I going to fix in my turn, men of Athens? It must be, must it not, what I deserve? Well then, what do I deserve to receive or pay because I chose not to sit quiet all my life, and turned aside from what most men care for, money-making and household affairs, leadership in war and public speaking, in all the offices and associations and factions of the state, thinking myself, as a matter of fact, too upright to be safe if I went into that life. So I held aloof from it all. I should have been of no use there to you or to myself, but I set about going in private to each individual man, and doing him the greatest of all services, as I assert, trying to persuade every one of you not to think of what he had not, but rather what he has, and how he might grow wise and good, nor consider what the city had, but what the city was, and so with everything else in the world. What then do I deserve for this? A reward, men of Athens, if I am really to consider my deserts, and a reward moreover that would suit me. And what reward would suit a poor man who had been a public benefactor, who is bound to refrain from work because of his service in exhorting you? There could be nothing so suitable, men of Athens, as a place at the table in the President's Hall, far more suitable than if any of you had won a horse race at Olympia or a chariot race. The Olympian victor brings you fancied happiness, but I bring you real. He does not need maintenance, but I do. If I am to fix what I deserve in all fairness, then this is what I fix, a place at the table in the President's Hall. Perhaps when I say this you will feel that I am speaking much as I spoke about entreaties for pity, that is to say, in a spirit of pride. But it is not so, Athenians. This is how it is. I am convinced that I have never done wrong to any man intentionally, but I cannot convince you. We have only had a little time to talk together. Had it been the custom with you, as with other nations, to spend not one day, but many, on a trial for life and death, I believe I would have convinced you. But as matters are, it is not easy to remove a great prejudice in a little time. Well, with this conviction of mine that I have never wronged any man, I am far from meaning to wrong myself by saying that I deserve any harm or assigning myself anything whatever of the kind. What should I be afraid of? Of suffering what Miletus has assigned, when I say I do not know, after all, whether it is not good? And to escape it I am to choose what I know quite well is bad? And what punishment should I fix? Imprisonment? Why should I live in prison, slave to the 11 of the day? Or should I say a fine with imprisonment until I pay it? But then there's just the difficulty I mentioned a moment ago. I have no money to pay a fine. Or am I to say exile? You might, I know, choose for that punishment. My love of life would indeed be great if I were so blind as not to see that you, my fellow citizens, have not been able to endure my ways and words. You have found them too trying and too heavy to bear, so that you would want to get rid of them now. And if that is so, will strangers put up with them? Far from it, men of Athens, and it would be a grand life for a man of my years to go into exile and wander about from one city to another. For well I know that wherever I went the young men would listen to my talk as they listen here, and if I drove them away they would drive me out themselves and persuade their elders to side with them, and if I let them come, their fathers and kindred would banish me on their account. Perhaps some will say, but Socrates, cannot you leave us and live in peace and quietness? Now that is just what is hardest to make you, some of you, believe. If I were to say that this would be to disobey God, and therefore I cannot hold my peace, you would not believe me. You would say I was using my irony. And if I say again that it is in fact the greatest of all goods for a man to talk about virtue every day, and the other matters on which you have heard me speaking and making inquiry into myself and others, if I say that the life without inquiry is no life for man, you would believe that even less. Yet it is so, even as I tell you, only it is not easy to get it believed. Moreover, I am not accustomed to think myself deserving of punishment. However, if I had had any money, I should have fixed a price that I could pay, for that would not have harmed me at all. But as it is, since I have no money, unless perhaps you would consent to fix only so much as I could afford to pay, perhaps I might be able to pay 1 mina silver, and I would fix it at that. But Plato here, gentlemen, Crito, and Christobulus, and Apollodorus beg me to say 30 minas, and they tell me they will guarantee it. So I will fix it at this sum, and these men, on whom you can rely, will be sureties for the amount. You have hastened matters a little, men of Athens, but for that little gain you will be called the murderers of Socrates the wise by all who want to find fault with the city. For those who wish to reproach you will insist that I am wise, though I may not be so. Had you but waited a little longer, you would have found this happen of itself, for you can see how old I am, far on in life, with death at hand. In this I am not speaking to all of you, but only to those who have sentenced me to death, and to them I will say one thing more. It may be, gentlemen, that you imagine I have been convicted for lack of arguments, by which I could have convinced you, had I thought it right to say and do anything in order to escape punishment. Far from it. No, convicted have I been, for lack of, not arguments, but audacity and impudence, and readiness to say what would have been a delight for you to hear, lamenting and bewailing my position, saying and doing all kinds of things unworthy of myself, as I consider, but such as you have been grown accustomed to hear from others. I did not think it right then to behave, through fear, unlike a free-born man, and I do not repent now of my defense. I would far rather die after that defense than live upon your terms. As in war, so in a court of justice, not I, nor any man, should scheme to escape death by any and every means. Many a time in battle it is plain the soldier could avoid death if he flung away his arms and turned to supplicate his pursuers, and there are many such devices in every hour of danger for escaping death, if we are prepared to say and do anything whatever. But, sirs, it may be that the difficulty is not to flee from death, but from guilt. Guilt is swifter than death, and so it is that I, who am now slow and old, have been caught by the slower paced, and my accusers, who are clever and quick, by the quick-footed, by wickedness. And now I am to go away, under sentence of death, from you, but on them truth is passed sentence of unrighteousness and injustice. I abide by the decision, and so must they. Perhaps, indeed, it had to be just so, and I think it very well.